That afternoon, the gym was filled with shouts, stomping feet, and the voices of eager trainers barking orders. Amid all that noise, an old man sat alone in the corner, his back slightly hunched, eyes focused on a worn-out notebook in his hand. They all laughed at him, until one perfect punch from a student knocked down their head coach. And in that moment, everything changed. The gym was called Steel Core MMA, tucked away at the end of an industrial road on the outskirts of Calgary. It had only been open a few months, but already it was buzzing with young, muscle-bound men chasing dreams of becoming champions in the ring. The coaches were young, energetic, and convinced their training methods were the most modern and effective out there. In the middle of all that energy and noise, there was one thing always present, yet never acknowledged: a frail old man with silver hair, wrinkled skin, and a faded military jacket with a torn sleeve. His name was Bill. Every day since the gym opened, Bill would sit on a cracked wooden bench near the back door. He never joined the workouts, never said much, and always carried a single bottle of water and a small notebook that he read and wrote in constantly. Not a single coach asked who he was. Most of the students just assumed he was a homeless man looking for a warm place to stay. At first, they ignored him, but over time, people began to get annoyed. Travis, one of the younger coaches and easily the loudest, often made harsh jokes about Bill. "If he's here to learn MMA, he's about 100 years too late, bro," he once said loudly during training, drawing laughter from a few students. Bill never responded. He'd just glance up for a second, offer a blank stare, and returned his notebook. As the days went by, the teasing got worse. Some would pretend to throw kicks in his direction during warm-ups. Others turned the music up just to disrupt him, but the old man never left. He just sat there, silent, taking notes, watching every single movement on the mats. No one knew those eyes were analyzing techniques, spotting weaknesses, recording patterns. He wrote it all down. He noticed everything. And not a single person realized they were being watched by someone who once changed the course of champions. By the second month, Bill's presence was no longer just a curiosity. It became a target. Some students started referring to him as the ghost in the corner, others as Grandpa War Stories. But the most relentless of all was Travis. Travis had a mouth as fast as his jabs. Every day, he came up with new ways to mock the veteran. He'd pass by and cough the word retirement, or offer Bill a toy boxing glove and say, "In case you feel like jumping in, coach." The other coaches laughed along, not out of malice, but because they followed Travis. He was loud, confident, and charismatic. And in their world of youth and power, the old man simply didn't fit. Sometimes, when the sparring round heated up, Travis would accidentally let a kick land too close to Bill's bench. "Oops. Sorry. Didn't see you there, Grandpa." Still, Bill said nothing. Not once did he flinch, raise his voice, or even appear bothered. He would just calmly shift his notebook, adjust his seat, and continue writing. But there was one person who noticed everything: Lily. Lily was new. 17, skinny, quiet. She had just joined the gym as part of a free program for underprivileged youth. She didn't say much, but she trained hard, and she wasn't blind. She saw how Bill watched every match with the focus of a hawk. She noticed how his pencil moved exactly in sync with each fighter's motion. And slowly, she began sitting closer to his bench, not out of pity, but out of curiosity. One afternoon, after a rough sparring session, Lily limped to the back and sat near Bill. She glanced at his notebook. "Are you writing about us?" she asked softly. Bill looked up, gave a half smile, and said, "Just keeping track. Helps me remember what works and what doesn't. You know MMA?" He gave a subtle nod. "A little." It wasn't much, but that one word stayed with Lily. The next day, when she struggled with her takedown form, she heard a quiet voice behind her. "Your left foot's too far back. Step in as you pivot. Shift your weight before you drop." She turned. It was Bill. She tried it again, this time following his advice. And it worked. Smooth, clean, effective. She looked back, but Bill had already turned away, returning to his seat and his notes. That moment changed everything for Lily. But for the rest of the gym, the laughter continued. Louder, harsher, more dismissive. And none of them realized that the corner they mocked was the quiet heart of something far greater than they could ever imagine. Lily began to train differently. She still attended the regular classes and drills, but now, after every session, she made her way to the corner where Bill sat. She didn't ask for lessons. She didn't expect him to teach. She just sat, sometimes quietly copying his movements, other times just observing what he wrote. Over time, their silence became a language of its own. Bill would glance up and gesture slightly, tilting his head, raising an eyebrow, tapping his notebook with one finger. Lily started to understand what each motion meant. Adjust your stance. Drop your elbow. Control your breathing. The small corrections made big changes. Within 2 weeks, Lily's sparring became sharper, her transitions smoother, her footwork no longer clumsy, but calculated. But with improvement came attention. Travis started noticing the shift. At first, he assumed it was a coincidence. Maybe Lily was just finally getting it. But then he saw her looking back at the old man after a particularly sharp round. He scoffed. "You taking lessons from a janitor now?" He laughed, loud enough for others to hear. Lily didn't respond. She didn't need to. Her eyes said everything. The next day, during class, Travis stopped the session midway. "All right," he said, pointing at Lily. "Let's see what you've got." The entire gym turned to watch. Lily stepped onto the mat. Travis paired her with a stronger, faster student named Dean. Everyone expected it to be quick, but it wasn't. Lily ducked, slipped, countered. Every time Dean came in aggressive, she redirected the force. Her form wasn't just improving. It was unorthodox, fluid, predictive, like she knew what was coming before it happened. She didn't win, but she didn't get destroyed either. And for the first time, people stopped laughing. After class, Travis approached her. "Where'd you learn that foot trap?" Lily hesitated. "I just practiced," she said, but her glance betrayed her. She looked toward the corner, toward Bill. Travis followed her gaze and locked eyes with the veteran. Bill didn't flinch. He simply looked back, calm and still. Something shifted in that moment. A question formed in Travis's mind, one he didn't say aloud. Who the hell is this guy? But instead of seeking answers, he let his pride speak louder. The next day, Travis made an announcement in front of everyone. "This weekend, Lily and I, 1 round, no time limit. You want to train weird? Fine. Let's see if it works." Lily froze. But Bill, he simply leaned forward, tore out a blank page from his notebook, and began to draw a diagram, a movement pattern, a plan. He handed it to Lily, looked her in the eye, and said just 3 words. "We'll prepare together." The days leading up to the sparring match felt heavier than usual. Whispers circled the gym. Most thought Travis was going too far. Some felt bad for Lily. Others just saw it as entertainment. But one thing was certain, everyone would be watching. Lily arrived earlier than usual each day. After regular classes, she would quietly retreat to the corner, where Bill waited with his notebook already open, diagrams sketched, and drills marked down. They never wasted a second. Bill didn't train her like the gym did. No heavy pad work, no loud yelling, no pushing to exhaustion. His training was quiet, technical, intentional. He showed her how to read an opponent's breathing, how to disguise a step, how to use an opponent's momentum against them. He spoke in low tones, sometimes using a pencil draw on the floor, other times tapping her knee or shoulder to show subtle shifts. "Don't try to beat his power," he said one day. "Redirect it. Let him come. Then guide him where he doesn't want to go." Lily listened to every word. Outside the corner, Travis was doing the opposite. Loud sparring, big punches, flashy movements. He bragged to everyone that he was going to end the match in 10 seconds. "She'll panic," he said. "I'll pressure her. She'll fold." He even made posters for the sparring session, mock fight announcements pinned to the gym wall. On one of them, someone had scribbled with a marker, "Veterans Prodigy versus Real Coach." When Lily saw it, her stomach dropped, but Bill only gave a soft chuckle. "They don't understand yet," he said. The night before the match, Lily sat beside Bill one last time. "You think I'm ready?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. Bill paused, then looked at her. "You're not ready to win," he said. "You're ready to surprise him. And sometimes surprise is the sharpest weapon of all." The next morning, she walked into the gym not as a student, but as a fighter, and every eye in the building turned to her. The mats were cleared. The crowd gathered. Travis stood in the center, bouncing on his toes, grinning. Bill remained in his usual place, quietly seated in the back corner, notebook closed, hands folded, waiting. The bell hadn't even rung, but the tension was already thick in the air. Everyone stood around the mat. Some recorded with their phones, others whispering predictions. Most believed Lily wouldn't last a full minute. A few held silent hope. Only one person remained completely calm. Bill, in the corner, eyes fixed on the center of the ring. Lily stepped forward. She wasn't dressed in flashy gear. Her gloves were basic. No entrance music. No cocky expression. Just quiet focus, just as Bill had taught her. Travis, on the other hand, bounced on the balls of his feet with confidence. He winked at the crowd, then looked directly at Bill, as if to say, "Watch this." The coach called him to the center. A brief nod, a quick glance, and the bell rang. Travis came in fast, heavy on his front foot, full of pressure, swinging wide with his right hook, just like Bill had predicted. Lily didn't engage. She stepped off the center line, just a fraction to the left. His punch grazed past her shoulder. She didn't strike back. She waited. Travis rushed again. A fake jab, then a real body shot. This time, Lily dropped slightly, twisted her hips, and used her forearm to deflect. No panic, just movement. By the third exchange, something subtle happened. Travis started to breathe heavier. Lily wasn't fighting him. She was making him miss. The crowd murmured. They hadn't expected this. Then came the moment Bill had prepared her for. Travis lunged forward, trying to close the distance with a double-leg takedown. As his weight shifted and his head dipped low, Lily pivoted to her right, wrapped her arm under his neck, and dropped her hips. A guillotine choke. Tight, clean, perfectly timed. The room gasped. Travis panicked. He thrashed, trying to break free, but Lily adjusted her grip, widened her base, and pulled. 1 second. 2 seconds. 3. Tapping. Loud. Fast. Clear. The coach ran in and separated them. It was over. The silence was louder than the cheering. Travis lay on the mat, panting, shocked. Lily stood up slowly, breathing hard but composed. She didn't celebrate. She didn't gloat. She simply turned her head, looked toward the corner, and Bill nodded once. That was all she needed. The gym was frozen. No one moved. No one laughed. Then one voice broke the silence. "Who is that old man?" No one answered, because now they were finally beginning to wonder. The aftermath of the match spread like wildfire. Lily left the mat quietly, but every step she took echoed louder than the fight itself. Travis remained seated on the floor, red-faced, drenched in sweat, disbelief in his eyes. The rest of the gym stood motionless, caught between shock and confusion. Someone finally muttered, "She tapped him out." Another added, "Was that a guillotine? That wasn't beginner stuff." It didn't take long before all eyes turned toward the corner, toward Bill. For the first time, people looked at him with something other than mockery. Not laughter, not annoyance, but curiosity. He hadn't moved. He sat exactly as he always did, hands on his lap, expression unreadable, as if nothing unusual had happened. The only difference was that his notebook was now closed. Later that afternoon, a group of students quietly gathered near the back. They didn't approach Bill directly. They stood a few meters away, whispering, "Did you see how he coached her? I think he called that entire match. Where did he even learn all that?" One of the assistant coaches, Jordan, walked to the back room and searched through some old files. Nothing. No registration, no emergency contact, no employment record. Bill wasn't listed anywhere. "He just shows up," Jordan said. "Never signed a waiver, never asked to join. He just watches. Another coach said, "That girl didn't learn that stuff here. Not from any of us." Some began to connect the dots. The diagrams, the quiet corrections, the strange, fluid techniques Lily used, and the way she glanced toward the old man before every move. Meanwhile, Travis avoided eye contact with everyone. He changed, showered, and left the gym early without a word. That night, Lily returned. The gym was almost empty, but Bill was there, sitting in his usual spot. She approached him, holding the piece of notebook paper he had given her days before, the same one with the pattern that helped her win. She sat beside him. "I did what you said," she whispered. Bill gave a small nod. "You did more than that." A long pause followed. Then Lily asked a question that had been growing inside her since the beginning. "Who are you really?" Bill didn't answer immediately. He stared at the center of the mat. Then he said, "I used to be a coach." "That's not what I mean," she said. Bill turned toward her, and for the first time, there was a flicker of something in his eyes, memories he had buried deep. "I trained champions. Before the noise, before the money, when it was just about grit." Lily's heart pounded. "Real champions?" she asked. Bill didn't speak. He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a photo, folded and weathered by time. He handed it to her. It showed a young, towering fighter with his arm raised in victory. Standing beside him, arms crossed, was a younger version of Bill. Under the photo, barely legible, were the words, "UFC World Lightweight Title, Alexei Volkov, 2018. Lily stared at it. Her hands trembled. She had just been trained by a man who helped build legends, and no one else knew. Yet, the next morning, Steel Core MMA was quieter than usual. No loud music, no shouting trainers. Even the usual group of cocky young fighters seemed subdued. The match from the day before had shifted something in the air. Everyone felt it, though no one knew how to talk about it. Bill, as always, was already in his corner seat before the gym officially opened. But this time, he wasn't alone for long. A black SUV pulled up in front of the building, its tinted windows gleaming under the early morning sun. The engine cut. The doors opened. Out stepped a man who didn't need an introduction, not to those who followed the sport. Tall, broad, scarred, wearing a dark track jacket, and carrying the kind of presence that silenced rooms. Alexei Volkov, former world lightweight champion, a name etched into the history of MMA. A fighter known for his ruthless precision, brutal knockouts, and mysterious disappearance from public life years ago. Every head in the gym turned. Alexei didn't greet anyone. He didn't look around. He walked straight through the gym, past the front desk, past the stunned trainers, past the frozen students, until he reached the corner, where Bill sat. They looked at each other. Neither spoke for a long time. Then Alexei dropped to one knee and bowed his head. "Coach," he said, his voice gravelly with emotion, "I've been looking for you." Gasps filled the room. Travis, who had just walked in, stood frozen in the doorway, his jaw clenched, eyes wide. Bill leaned forward slightly, expression calm as always. "Didn't expect to see you here, Volkov." Alexei raised his head. "I wouldn't be who I am without you," he said. "And they don't know. They have no idea." Bill gestured subtly around the gym. "They don't need to." But Alexei shook his head. "They do now." He stood up, turned to face the room, and raised his voice, not loud, but enough to silence every whisper. "This man," he said, pointing to Bill, "trained me when no one else could, built me when no one else cared. He taught me how to fight, how to win, how to survive." The silence was absolute. Alexei looked around, locking eyes with every coach, every student, and finally with Travis. "You all laughed at him," he said. "I know that look. I've seen it before. I used to be one of you. But then he broke me down, rebuilt me, and made me a champion." He turned back to Bill. "I owe you everything." Bill said nothing. His eyes were heavy, but his posture remained still, composed. Lily, standing near the wall, felt her throat tighten. The man who quietly corrected her stance had once shaped the most feared fighter in the world. Suddenly, The old jacket, the scars, the silence, the notebook, it all made sense. The ghost in the corner wasn't a ghost at all. He was a legend hiding in plain sight. And now, the entire gym finally knew. The mood in the gym transformed overnight. No more laughter. No more whispers. No more mocking glances toward the corner. Bill's seat, once dismissed as a place of an unwanted stranger, had now become a focal point of reverence. People began to nod as they walked past him. A few offered quiet greetings. One student even left a bottle of water beside his bench, the label peeled just slightly, just like the one Bill always carried. Travis didn't speak to anyone that day. He showed up for class but stayed distant, his eyes constantly drifting toward the back, where Bill remained seated like always, scribbling in his notebook. Every punch Travis threw felt heavier now. Every technique, somehow less certain. The confidence he once wore like armor had cracked. Lily, on the other hand, had become a quiet figure of awe. No one teased her anymore. No one questioned her methods. They saw her differently now, not just because she had beaten Travis, but because of who had trained her. One by one, the students began approaching Bill, tentatively, hesitantly. "Sir, could you take a look at my footwork sometime? I've been struggling with my clinch game. Would you mind watching my next round?" Most times, Bill would give only a nod or a few short words, but he started showing up earlier, staying longer, watching more intently. His corrections were subtle. A shift of weight, a soft tap on the shoulder, a whispered phrase. "Relax your jaw. Your opponent's right shoulder always twitches before he shoots. You're fighting the moment. Learn to fight the rhythm." The coaches, initially defensive, slowly softened. One of them, Jordan, quietly brought over an extra clipboard and placed it next to Bill's notebook. No words, just a gesture. By the end of the week, Bill's influence was undeniable. Techniques improved. Confidence returned to fighters, but this time it was rooted in awareness, not ego. Sparring round became more tactical, more fluid. The gym started to feel less like a chaotic training pit and more like a place of discipline and learning. And through it all, Bill remained the same. He never asked for payment, never gave long speeches, never asked to be respected, but he had earned it. One afternoon, as class wrapped up and the fighters cleared the mats, Travis finally walked toward the corner. His hands were wrapped, but his stance was unsteady. Bill didn't look up. Travis stood there for a long moment before finally speaking. "I was wrong." The words came out raw, honest. "I mocked you. I disrespected you. And I didn't know who you were. But now I do. And I just want to say I'm sorry." Bill slowly closed his notebook. "You weren't wrong," he said. "You were young, and young men think noise makes them strong." Travis looked at the floor. "I want to learn. If you'll teach me." Bill studied him for a long moment, then said, "Start by unlearning." He stood. For the first time in months, Bill rose from his bench, slowly but surely. The entire gym watched. And with that one motion, the old man became something more. Not a veteran in the corner, but the quiet storm that would rebuild them all. News didn't take long to spread beyond the gym walls. A former champion had returned to pay tribute. A young fighter had shocked her coach. And an old man once ignored had become the hidden force behind it all. It started with whispers in online forums. Someone had snapped a blurry photo of Bill with Alexei Volkov kneeling before him. Within hours, the post went viral. Who is the mystery coach behind Volkov's rise? Silent genius spotted in Calgary MMA gym? The ghost in the corner? Did a forgotten veteran train the world's best? Journalists reached out. Offers came in. Gym memberships tripled in 2 days. But Bill, he didn't change. He still came early, sat in the same spot, used the same notebook, still wore that tattered jacket with the patch barely hanging by a thread. He refused interviews, refused cameras, refused attention. But his impact was no longer ignorable. Lily had become his first official student in nearly 10 years. And under his silent guidance, she advanced rapidly. Her control, her timing, her reading of opponents, it felt beyond her experience. Sparring partners began avoiding being matched with her. She never gloated, never bragged. She simply listened. Other fighters followed. First a beginner named Marcos, then a heavier striker named Darnell. Each one approached Bill not with pride, but with humility, and Bill accepted them one at a time. He never shouted, never barked orders. But somehow, his presence carried more authority than all the other coaches combined. One afternoon, the head of the gym, Coach Brandon, called a meeting. Everyone gathered in the center. "I've been in this business for 15 years, Brandon said, voice steady. "And I've seen a lot of fighters, a lot of trainers. But what we've witnessed this past week, it's not normal. It's not luck." He turned toward Bill. "Sir," he said, lowering his voice with respect, "if you're willing, I'd like to officially offer you a role here. Head trainer, or anything you'd like. Just say the word." Bill looked around the gym. He saw Lily stretching in the corner, her footwork tight and calm. He saw Travis helping a new student practice takedowns, his ego no longer dictating his tone. He saw eyes that used to laugh at him now waiting with anticipation, reverence, and trust. Then he replied, "I'm not here for titles, or money, or attention. I just want to teach those who are ready to listen." Brandon smiled. "Then we'll listen." That evening, for the first time, Bill stepped onto the mat, not to spar, not to fight, but to instruct. He drew circles in chalk, marked angles, demonstrated grip changes, pressure points, rhythm beats. The entire gym surrounded him, silent and focused. No one looked away. No one questioned. And in that moment, something extraordinary happened. Steel Core MMA was no longer just a gym. It became a sanctuary of learning, led by the man no one had seen coming. The man in the corner. Weeks passed, then months. The change within Steel Core MMA was undeniable. The energy shifted from arrogance to discipline, from noise to focus. The culture Bill had quietly instilled was now embedded in every breath of the gym. Fighters stopped chasing knockouts and started studying movement. Coaches no longer shouted to assert control. They watched, listened, and learned. Even newcomers noticed it. It felt different here. More serious, more silent, more dangerous. And then came the tournament, a regional MMA championship, the largest the province had seen in years. Dozens of fighters from top-tier gyms, many with sponsorships and media attention, had signed up. Steel Core entered 5 fighters. 3 were beginners. 1 was Travis, and the last was Lily. Everyone knew who the underdog was. But the moment the Steel Core team walked into the venue, led not by Brandon, not by Travis, but by a quiet, silver-haired man in a worn military jacket, something shifted. Even before a punch was thrown, people whispered, "That's him, the one from the photo, the coach who trained Volkov. I heard he lives at the gym. I heard he was military, special forces, coached underground fighters in Russia. No one knows, but they say he makes killers." The fights began, and one by one, the Steel Core fighters dominated. Their styles were different from everyone else. Not flashy, not aggressive, but efficient, unreadable. Their opponents looked confused, unable to anticipate movement, as if fighting shadows. They weren't just winning, they were dismantling. Then came Travis's fight. He entered the cage a different man, humbled, focused, and for the first time in his career, composed. He fought with a pace that didn't rely on brute force, but patience, setting traps, waiting for mistakes, then capitalizing. In the final round, he locked in a rear-naked choke with the kind of control that only came from hours of silent correction. Bill had taught him to breathe, and now the fight was his. Then it was Lily's turn. Her opponent was bigger, undefeated, and known for knockouts. But Lily stepped into the ring like water, calm, flowing, unpredictable. She didn't trade punches. She read movements, slipped attacks, wore her opponent down with precise counters. In the second round, she feinted a takedown, baited a hook, and executed a spinning elbow that dropped her opponent to the mat. The crowd roared. Lily didn't raise her hands. She turned to the side of the cage. Bill stood there, still, but this time he raised one hand. A salute, After the tournament, as cameras flashed and trophies were handed out, journalists swarmed Bill. "Coach, what's your secret? Where did you come from? Why did you disappear all these years?" But he stepped back, motioning toward his students. "They're the story," he said. "Not me." When they pushed further, one young reporter finally asked, "Why come back now?" Bill looked around. At Lily, standing tall with her trophy. At Travis, speaking respectfully to a younger fighter. At the team surrounding him, each one changed. And he replied softly, because they finally started listening. That night, the corner wasn't empty. The bench Bill once sat on alone was now surrounded by students, fighters, and coaches. He still wore the same jacket, still used the same notebook. But now, it wasn't hidden anymore. The world had seen. The legend had returned. And no one would ever laugh at the corner again.